What would you do if your own boss accused you of fraud and dragged you into court with fabricated evidence? I trusted him. I worked late nights, skipped weekends, and gave him everything. And when I finally stood up for myself, he tried to destroy me. But here's the twist: he never imagined I had a plan too. A plan that would turn the courtroom tables on him so hard he'd end up the one being sued. This isn't just about revenge. It's about justice. And I made sure he got exactly what he deserved. Let me take you back to the beginning, when I still believed hard work meant something, that loyalty would protect you, and that doing the right thing mattered more than playing dirty. My name's Rachel. I was 27, working as a project coordinator in a fast-paced marketing firm downtown. I wasn't trying to climb the corporate ladder with backstabbing or gossip. I just wanted to be good at my job and build something real. My boss, Darren, was one of those polished types. Always smiling, always saying the right thing in meetings. To the higher-ups, he was golden. But behind closed doors, he was a manipulative control freak who thrived on keeping people insecure and under his thumb. I didn't see it at first. To me, he was a mentor. I actually looked up to him. Until the day I asked for something simple. Credit. Credit for a campaign I had stayed up for 3 nights straight to salvage. That's when everything started to unravel. He didn't just say no. He lashed out. Subtly at first, cutting me out of meetings, questioning my performance, making backhanded comments about my attitude. Then when I didn't back down, he did something far worse. He accused me of stealing company data and leaking it to competitors. Fabricated emails. Doctored files. And before I could even blink, I was being served legal papers. But here's what Darren didn't know. I wasn't just going to survive this. I was going to make sure he paid for every lie. This is the story of how a fake legal case turned into real consequences, and how I turned his game against him. When I first got the job at Valarmark Media, I thought I'd hit the jackpot. The office had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline, free coffee from some boutique roaster, and a culture that looked modern and inclusive on the surface. I was fresh off a burnout from a dead-end position at a tiny firm, and Valarmark seemed like the fresh start I desperately needed. I joined as a project coordinator on the strategic campaigns team. The first few months felt like magic. Fast-moving projects, energetic brainstorming sessions, the buzz of collaboration. I thrived on that energy. I was good at organizing chaos, bringing ideas to life, and making sure things got done. That's where Darren came in. Darren was the head of strategy and my direct supervisor. Charismatic. Suave. Always the loudest laugh in the room. He remembered birthdays, brought donuts on Fridays, and sent out the most motivating emails after every big win. People admired him. And I wanted to be like him. He made things look effortless. He started taking me under his wing, gave me ownership of bigger projects, looped me in on leadership meetings, praised me in front of directors. I thought I was lucky. I thought I was finally being seen. But something subtle was always off. The kind of off you ignore when everything else feels like it's going right. Like how he'd joke about my outfits being too sharp, or how he'd act like he was just teasing when he said I was a little intense for someone not in management. Or how my ideas would suddenly show up in presentations with his name on them, but no mention of me. I brushed it off. Told myself to focus on the bigger picture. He was mentoring me, right? Then came the Turner Tech campaign. It was supposed to be a career maker. A massive 6-month project to reposition a tech giant's branding after a public scandal. Darren handed it to me and said, "Let's see what you can do." No team. Just me, a looming deadline, and him as my support. I poured myself into it. I worked nights, skipped vacations, even spent my own money on competitor research tools. Darren gave minimal input, just enough to keep himself looped in. When the client finally approved the campaign with glowing reviews, I felt proud. Like I finally proved I wasn't just another cog in the machine. But during the final presentation, as the boardroom clapped, Darren stood up and took a bow. "Our team worked tirelessly," he said. "I personally spearheaded the creative rescue on this one." I blinked. Wait, what? No mention of me. Not even a nod. Later, I confronted him gently. Asked why he hadn't mentioned my name. He laughed. "Come on, Rachel. That's just how the game works. You'll get your turn." I felt a mix of humiliation and betrayal, but also a spark. A warning signal. Still, I didn't want to blow things up over one moment. Maybe he really didn't mean harm. But that was my last naive thought about Darren. The next few weeks were cold. I was suddenly left off key email threads. assigned to supporting roles instead of leads. Darren stopped looking me in the eye. I overheard things, coworkers saying I was not a team player, or too ambitious. And then one Monday morning I was called into HR. They said they received a tip. That I had accessed confidential files without clearance. That emails had been flagged showing communications with a competitor. They placed me on immediate administrative leave. Thought it was a joke. I laughed in the HR manager's face. But she wasn't laughing. She handed me a thick manila folder. Inside were printed screenshots, emails that looked like they came from my work account. Excel sheets marked company confidential. IP logs, file timestamps, it all looked real. Except it wasn't. My stomach dropped. My ears rang. The emails were fake. I had never written them. The files? I'd never even seen half of them. I tried to explain, to say someone must have hacked my account or manipulated the logs. They said an internal investigation was underway. That I should wait at home. That legal counsel might contact me soon. When I left the office that day, my legs felt like they might give out. At first, I couldn't believe Darren would go that far. But slowly, the pieces fell into place. I remembered how he once bragged about manipulating timestamps on reports to make himself look better. How he had joked that most HR people won't know a fake from the real thing if it's in a PDF. How he'd once said with a smirk, the best offense is a well-timed lie. He was afraid of me. Afraid I'd speak up. That I'd outshine him. So he decided to bury me first. I should have collapsed into despair right then. But something else happened instead. I got angry. Very angry. And that anger became fuel. Because Darren had messed with the wrong woman. I wasn't just going to defend myself, I was going to make sure everyone saw the truth. And this time he wouldn't be the one holding the evidence. I spent the first week of my forced leave in shock. Staring at those fake emails, rereading the accusation over and over again, trying to make sense of it all. My inbox was frozen, my access to internal servers revoked. I couldn't even message my team, most of whom had already started pulling away the moment the whispers began. That's what betrayal does. It doesn't just hurt your reputation. It isolates you. Fast. My friends at work? Suddenly too busy to grab lunch. The friendly nods in the hallway? Gone. It was like I had some invisible stain no one wanted to catch. Darren made sure of that. The worst part. HR wasn't even pretending to be neutral. Their tone was icy, almost rehearsed. Until the investigation is complete, we must assume the evidence is credible, they kept saying. Credible? I was living a nightmare built on lies, and no one wanted to hear the truth. Except, there was one person who believed me. Megan. She was an intern-turned-junior associate on our team. Quiet. Diligent. Always taking notes. She had shadowed me during the Turner Tech campaign. One evening, out of nowhere, I got a message from her personal email. I don't know exactly what's going on, but something feels wrong. Darren asked me weeks ago to export some email logs from your account. Said it was for backup. I didn't think anything of it then. But now. I'm scared. That message changed everything. I asked her to meet. We talked in her car, parked in a quiet lot far from the office. Megan told me Darren had asked her to download a series of spreadsheets from our shared folder, and he even gave her access to metadata tools she'd never used before. She didn't question it at the time, he was her boss too. But now she realized he might have used her to build the fake paper trail. He used her to copy my digital fingerprints. And suddenly I wasn't just the target, I was the scapegoat in a very calculated scheme. I started connecting dots. Darren had long been under pressure to show results. Upper management had hinted that a promotion, or even a spot in corporate, was coming, but only if he could clean house and hit aggressive efficiency metrics. He needed someone to blame for missed deadlines, for budget overages, for data leaks that he himself had caused, trying to cozy up to competing firms with insider gossip. Framing me wasn't just malicious. It was strategic. He figured I'd stay quiet. That I'd walk away out of fear, maybe even sign a severance NDA and disappear into the jobless void. But that wasn't going to happen. Because this went beyond corporate politics. Darren had forged documents, manipulated digital evidence, involved an innocent junior employee. And worst of all, he almost ruined my name, my future. I reached out to a friend from college, Cameron, now an associate at a mid-sized law firm. I told him everything. He listened stone-faced, then leaned back and said, If even half of what you're saying is true, Rachel, that's not just workplace drama. That's criminal. I remember that moment so clearly. Because for the first time in weeks I felt like someone saw me. Like someone believed me. He helped me document everything. Every Slack message, every project folder I could still access, screenshots from Megan call logs, old emails where Darren contradicted himself. We built a timeline. We compared file timestamps against company reports. Cameron even pulled in a digital forensics expert to review the supposed evidence against me. And that's when we hit the jackpot. Buried in the metadata of one of the Excel sheets Darren claimed I had sent to a competitor, there was an author tag, Darren's full name. He had exported the file using his own machine and forgot to scrub the metadata. It was like finding a fingerprint on a murder weapon. I sent that information to HR, accompanied by a legal notice from Cameron's firm threatening defamation and wrongful termination charges if they didn't pause their investigation and allow for an independent review. Valomark panicked. Suddenly HR was very responsive. I got a call within hours asking if I could come in for a conversation. I declined. I wasn't stepping foot back into that office until this was over, and I made that clear. Darren, meanwhile, was still walking around like nothing had happened. Smiling. Charming clients. Planning happy hours. But beneath that smile the walls were closing in. Then came the breaking point. Megan was called into HR. They asked her if she had communicated with me. He told them the truth. Darren had used her credentials, her access, and her trust to help fabricate documents. She didn't want to go down with him, and she had screenshots to prove it. The company launched a new external investigation. 3 days later, Darren was placed on unpaid leave. But that wasn't enough. Because this wasn't just about clearing my name anymore. It was about holding him accountable. For every lie, every manipulation, every time he looked me in the eyes and pretended to care while plotting my downfall behind the scenes. Cameron filed a civil lawsuit on my behalf. Malicious defamation, emotional distress, and fraudulent misrepresentation. And Darren? He was about to find out that playing puppet master with someone's life can have very real, very expensive consequences. I wish I could say revenge was immediate. That Darren was exposed overnight and everything went back to normal. But that's not how real life works. What happened instead was smarter. Surgical. Because Darren didn't just try to destroy my career. He tried to erase my identity, my credibility, and every ounce of trust I'd built over years of hard work. So my revenge? It had to be calculated. And public. Step 1 was the lawsuit. With Cameron leading the charge, we structured the civil suit around 3 key pillars: defamation, fraudulent fabrication of documents, and emotional damages caused by the false claims. The inclusion of Megan's testimony, and the digital forensics report showing Darren's machine metadata, made our case bulletproof. But lawsuits are slow. What I needed next was pressure. Public pressure. So I made a move that Darren never saw coming. I turned to the media. A journalist friend from college, Lexi, now worked for a popular career and workplace blog that focused on corporate accountability. She'd covered stories like mine before. Whistleblowers, #MeToo survivors, discrimination exposés. I told her everything minus the classified company details. I didn't break any NDAs, didn't name Valomark directly. I just told my story as Rachel, the anonymous professional who was falsely accused by her superior, only to turn the tables. The article blew up. It struck a nerve, especially among women in corporate spaces. People flooded the comments with their own stories of being sabotaged, manipulated, gaslit by bosses who wore smiles in meetings and daggers behind closed doors. The story made its way to LinkedIn. Industry groups, Reddit, TikTok, career influencers made reaction videos. Even though I remained anonymous, people at Valomark knew. The timeline matched. The phrases matched. And Darren? He definitely knew. Because by the following Monday, HR called again. This time their tone was cautious. Measured. They wanted to work together to resolve the misunderstanding. I let Cameron handle it. Behind the scenes, I wasn't just preparing for trial. I was auditing everything Darren had touched in the past 6 months. I requested my own digital access logs through a legal discovery motion. What we found was devastating for him. Multiple access breaches to private employee files from his account. Shady transactions routed through dummy email aliases. And a hidden folder in his drive titled, training assets, which, once decrypted, contained mock-ups of doctored performance reviews. Mine and others. It was a graveyard of his crimes. We compiled it all. Not just for court, but for Valormark's board of directors. That's where step 3 came in. A quiet source in accounting tipped us off that Valormark was preparing a private settlement offer. They wanted to sweep the entire scandal under the rug before investors got wind of it. Their next quarterly call was in 3 weeks, which gave me leverage. I told Cameron not to settle. Not yet. Instead, we crafted a counteroffer with teeth, a public apology from Valormark's leadership, full reinstatement of my role, back pay for the time I was suspended, and mandatory compliance retraining across the entire executive team. Or else, we'd take it to court. And the press. That's when the dominoes started falling. First, Darren was quietly terminated. No farewell party. No press release. Just gone. Then came the email from Valormark CEO, sent to the entire company, vague references to a breakdown in ethical standards, and steps toward accountability. It didn't name Darren, but everyone knew. A week later, I received a 6-figure settlement offer. This time with all of my terms met, plus a clause stating that Darren had acted outside the knowledge and approval of company leadership. That wasn't enough for me. I wanted his name on the lawsuit. I wanted him personally liable. So we moved forward with the civil suit anyway. Darren tried to countersue for defamation, but his countersuit was laughed out of court once Megan testified, tearfully explaining how he had used her as a pawn in his game. When Darren was officially served at his new temporary address, his sister's cramped apartment in Jersey, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But then I remembered the nights I cried myself to sleep, convinced I was going to lose everything because of a lie. I remembered how powerless I felt standing in HR with fake documents shoved in my face. Oh. He didn't deserve pity. He deserved consequences. Darren's legal defense crumbled under the weight of the evidence. His personal finances took a massive hit. Legal fees, damages, and a judgment requiring him to pay a portion of my emotional distress claim out of his own pocket. His LinkedIn disappeared. So did his consulting work. Word got around quickly in the marketing industry. Darren was poison. Me. I wasn't just cleared. I was promoted. Valormark, under immense public scrutiny, offered me a new position. Director of Ethical Operations. A made-up title, sure. But it came with autonomy, a solid paycheck, and the promise of real change. I took it, not because I wanted to stay, but because I wanted to clean house on my own terms. And I did. I rewrote the company's whistleblower policy. Implemented third-party audits for HR decisions. And every time someone whispered about what happened with Darren, I didn't flinch. I just smiled. Because the truth had won. And revenge? Tasted a lot like justice, with a hint of poetic irony. The day of the court ruling was quiet. No fanfare, no cameras, just polished floors, murmured greetings from strangers in suits, and the low hum of fluorescent lights. Darren sat 2 rows ahead of me, shoulders hunched, jaw tight, the smirk that used to make me feel small now completely gone. He didn't even look back. I didn't need him to. The judge read the decision calmly, clearly, like it was just another case on the docket. But to me, every word felt like a thunderclap. The court finds the defendant, Darren Fields, responsible for defamation, falsifying internal documentation, and causing emotional and professional harm to the plaintiff. I exhaled for the first time in what felt like months. He was ordered to pay damages, both compensatory and punitive. His lawyer barely tried to argue. There was too much stacked against him. The doctored metadata, the whistleblower testimony, the blatant misuse of company systems. But more than the financial penalty, what really hit Darren was what came next. The court mandated a formal admission of wrongdoing, to be delivered in writing and shared with Valormark's internal legal department, as well as submitted to the company's ethics committee. This wasn't just a legal loss. It was a reputation death sentence. And it wasn't long before word got out. You see, corporate circles are small, especially in marketing. Darren's name became synonymous with manipulation and scandal. The same recruiters who once courted him stopped taking his calls. His references dried up. His personal website vanished. Then came the cherry on top. Megan, who had quietly transferred to another company, decided to file her own civil claim for coercion and misuse of authority. Inspired by my case, she finally found the courage to stand up for what had been done to her. Darren was now facing 2 separate lawsuits, and he didn't have a company to shield him. From what I heard through the grapevine, he tried to freelance, but clients kept Googling him. One even posted on a professional forum, "Be careful who you trust with your brand. Especially someone who's been sued for corporate sabotage." Poetic, isn't it? As for me, life didn't just go back to normal. Got better. My name was cleared. My story became a symbol of resilience. I was invited to speak at conferences about workplace ethics and digital safety. I even did a guest episode on a podcast called The Corporate Comeback, sharing my journey from being falsely accused to becoming the one who brought down the liar at the top. But the best part? One day, months later, I got an email from a junior employee at another company. "I read your story. I just want you to know it gave me the courage to speak up about what my boss is doing. Thank you." That's when I knew this wasn't just revenge. It was change. Darren may have tried to erase me, but in the end he erased himself, and all I had to do was tell the truth, fight smart, and refuse to be silent. Now, every time I walk into a room, I don't carry shame. I carry power. Because I survived the lie and I turned it into justice. Looking back, I still can't fully believe how far I came from that cold, humiliating moment in HR to standing in court victorious, watching the man who tried to ruin me get held accountable in full view of the law. But here's the truth no one tells you. Revenge isn't always loud. It's not screaming matches or social media takedowns. Sometimes revenge is patience. Revenge is choosing the long road. The legal road. The road where you gather your facts like armor and walk forward even when your knees shake. Darren thought he was invincible. He thought no one would question him because of his title, his charm, and the fear he used like a weapon. But he underestimated one thing. I wasn't alone. It took courage to come forward. It took support from people like Megan, Cameron, and even strangers online who reminded me that I wasn't crazy for wanting justice. And maybe that's what I want you to remember if you're listening to this and you're in a similar place. You are not overreacting. You are not dramatic. You are not wrong for demanding respect. You deserve to be heard. You deserve a workplace that values truth over status. And if someone tries to take that from you, you have every right to fight back, with your voice, your evidence, your truth. Darren paid the price. I didn't just win. I rebuilt my future on my own terms. And now, whenever someone tries to belittle my experience or sweep it under the rug, I don't argue. I just say, he faked a legal case against me, but in the end, he got sued himself. Thank you for listening to my story. And if this resonated with you, if you've ever been in a position where someone in power tried to silence you, don't let them win. Speak up. Stand tall. And if you have to, sue them right back. If this story made you feel seen, heard, or inspired, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you've ever been wronged in the workplace or faced an unfair accusation, share your story below. Your voice might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. Turn on notifications so you never miss more powerful true stories like this one. Thank you for being here. Your support makes everything possible.